Well, Donald Trump admitted to having an MRI, something that the White House previously had not said. I think he actually slipped up when he said it. In case you have not seen that, here is just a bit of sound of Donald Trump saying that. And then I have Dick Cheney's doctor exposing what this all means. And then I have another doctor exposing that Donald Trump more likely than not had a stroke. First, here is Donald Trump explaining that he had an MRI.
Readout from Walter Reed mentioned advanced medical imaging. Did you get an MRI? Can you tell us what that was?
I did. I got an MRI. It was perfect. Yeah.
I got an MRI. It was perfect. Yeah, nobody's ever given a report like that. He's such a freaking idiot. All right. But then here is Dick Cheney's doctor explaining what this actually all means.
Vice President Dick Cheney worked as a White House physician for years. Dr. Reiner, thanks so much for joining us. As you know, MRIs are not necessarily always part of a routine checkup. How unusual is this, and why might the president have had an MRI during this checkup?
Well, an MRI is never part of a routine evaluation, whether you're president of the United States or whether you're just a civilian. So we don't know why his doctors asked him to undergo that test, and that's a big question. The other question is, why did they decide not to inform the public that they were doing that? Why was that deliberately left out?
Bingo! Bingo! I said that before. I'm saying it again. They should have told us immediately that he was doing this. And there's obviously a reason why that they're looking for something. We don't know what it is. Could it be a tumor? We don't know. Generally speaking, MRIs are used to find the cause of something. So what is causing something that would make them look for using an MRI?
There are a lot of things that can prompt an MRI, and typically they're prompted by symptoms. There can be neurologic symptoms that prompt an MRI. There could be back pain that prompts an MRI. There can be issues with the heart that would prompt an MRI. And for those reasons, the public should really be told, why did the president undergo the test, what consultants he saw, and what was the result of the testing.
If you would just remind our viewers, because maybe not everyone knows what an MRI is, Dr. Reiner, and why that's significant here. And then also, could it have to do with the bruising we've seen on his hands or the swelling in his legs that's been visible?
Right. So MRI is magnetic resonance imaging. It's this really spectacular imaging technology that basically involves using a very strong magnetic force and radio frequency waves. The magnetic force basically aligns all of your hydrogen ions into a certain direction, and then they are basically disrupted by these radio frequency waves, and the way they bounce are specific to different tissues. So this amazing physics allows for really very detailed images. As for the bruising, in his hand, there are a lot of things that can do that. And the most common etiology for bruising in the back of a 79-year-old person's hand are medications. And the typical medication that causes that would be a blood thinner. I see this every week when I see patients in clinic. Blood thinners, particularly in the elderly, cause bruising on the back of the hands. But we've not been told that the president takes that. People take blood thinners for a variety of reasons. You could take it if you had a pulmonary embolism in the past. You can take it if you have a clot in your leg, a DVT. And you can take a blood thinner if you have atrial fibrillation. And people who take blood thinners for AFib, atrial fibrillation, typically are on them indefinitely. And the side effect of medications like that are bruising. But why he would have an MRI depends on the underlying reason for either that medication or other undisclosed medical problems. And to me, I think it's more important it's just as important why he had the test as it is what the test showed.
The president, as you know, and we all heard, called the results of this MRI scan perfect. What about transparency?
Yeah.
What does the revelation do to the public trust in the president's health?
Yeah, I think about these issues all the time. When I see patients in the clinic, particularly new patients, and you're trying to develop a doctor-patient relationship, it's based on trust. The patient has to trust that not only am I competent to provide care, but that I'm going to tell them the truth. So the relationship is based on trust. And I think the public, when they're trying to understand whether a high elected official is fit for office, they need to trust those that are telling them the data. And that comes from from an understanding that what they're being told is the truth.
What they're being told is not the truth. And it's funny to me that CNN is acting like they are just bystanders and all this. They literally could do investigative reporting. Whatever happened to investigative reporting? Whatever happened to journalists trying to find out what the most powerful people in the world don't want them to know? Whatever happened to that? Because there seems to be a lot of evidence around the president's health. And all we have is speculation. We do know that Donald Trump is flashing his kinkles when meeting with the world leaders. Look at those babies. Woo, boy, those babies are getting big. So there is definitely something going on with the president. So we have to speculate. And here is one doctor on TikTok who yesterday gave us an update around what could be the actual cause of Donald Trump's health issues. And here it is.
He walks like this because he's had a stroke, and his spatial awareness, balance, strength, and gait have all been affected. I'm a physical therapist with a doctorate in my field and 14 years experience treating geriatric patients, just like the president. The reason he's meandering all across that red carpet is because he lacks the spatial awareness to stay on target or on the path in a straight line. This is because I believe he's had a stroke that's affected the left side of his brain and caused weakness on the right side of his body. When one side of your body is weaker than the other, it can become difficult to walk in a straight line anymore. But aside from the physical weakness, your balance is affected as well. All of the built-in programming in your cerebellum that's been there since you were small, it gets holes poked in it by a cerebrovascular accident, or even just a series of TIAs, or transient ischemic attacks. When he went back to Walter Reed for that checkup, it was a 6-week follow-up for a stroke event that he probably had over Labor Day. A stroke on the left side of the brain would also explain why he talks nonsense so much more often nowadays, and also why when he is fatigued after long travel like you see in that video, his speech is much slower, much quieter, and much more slurred. His stroke events have not been severe enough for him not to be able to hide it for the most part. But as I tell many stroke patients who still want to smoke, it's much easier to have a stroke once you've already had one. And on top of that, being 80 years old, he's also experiencing age-related cognitive decline that any 80-year-old would experience regardless of their medical history. His plan is to stay in the White House permanently. He has no intention of reopening the government, and he has no intention of releasing anything to do with those pesky files. But the people closest to him know what kind of medical condition he's really in and how close he actually is to having the 25th Amendment invoked. I'd say he's got 5 to 7 months left with us in total. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
And meanwhile, Donald Trump is admitting that an elementary school level test was very hard. President Trump admitted that he found a test he took to screen for possible early signs of cognitive decline very hard. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One overnight, the president was attacking Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and AOC as low IQ, which is the racist thing he does. He only says it about people of color when he outed himself for struggling with simple exams. Quote, has AOC passed the exams that I decided to take when I was at Walter Reed? He said, those are very hard. They're really aptitude tests, I guess, in a certain way, but they're cognitive tests. Let AOC go against Trump, let Jasmine go against Trump. The test asks respondents to draw a clock, identify pictures of animals, and repeat back a list of 5 words according to its creators. The test was designed to detect medical cognitive impairment as early as possible, not to measure intelligence or IQ. It's nice to know that Donald Trump finds these tests to detect dementia difficult. It makes sense to me. So there's obviously a lot going on with the president's health. We're going to keep following this. I appreciate that you all are interested in it too. So I'm definitely going to try to find everything we can, speculate where possible, find evidence when necessary, and I will bring you more as I can. So if you like this video, do hit like. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you soon. Bye.